I'm Ernie, and this is your Realist review for Iron Man 3. Iron Man 3 picks us up right where Avengers left off for the most part. We have Tony Stark, played by Robert Downey Jr., who is still coming to grips with the idea that aliens, gods, and cosmic cubes even exist. And that's one of those moments where we realize Tony has, of anybody that we've seen so far since Avengers, has probably suffered the most from, this whole Avengers, New York. I mean, this guy is pretty much a train wreck. I mean, the guy can't sleep. I mean, he's obviously just haggard and can barely, think straight. And it's one of those situations where you kind of have to sit back and wonder, damn, if this is happening to him, I wonder what's going on with Captain America. But, I mean, we really get a beaten and battered Tony Stark. And much like how Tony Stark has changed with the coming and going of the Iron Man movies and Avengers, so too has his supporting cast changed. I mean, Happy Hogan is different. Pepper Potts is different. Rhodey is different. All these characters have evolved in new incarnations. One of the things I thought was really cool about this movie is the chemistry and the dialogue in this movie. I expected no less from Shane Black. I mean, the guy brought us, Lethal Weapon. He also got us The Last Boy Scout and Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. The dialogue is very witty. It's very snappy, especially with Tony Stark. He comes off as a much different and far more improved character archetype than what you had in even the previous films, especially the second one. Whereas in the second one, he came off as more of a douchey McDouchebag, condescending asshole. In this movie, he comes off as more affable, more of a boy at heart, but at the same time, still a tortured soul, considering all that's happened to him. One of the other things I really thought was cool here is with the chemistry with this cast, you don't get any of that awkwardness that we had with Iron Man 2. With Iron Man 2, everybody just kind of felt like they were phoning it in. Everybody was just kind of there. It felt like a toy commercial or something like that, more than it did an actual movie. And with this film, you get a better vibe from it. I mean, the entire cast is spot on. I mean, even the new characters. You got Guy Pearce coming in as Aldrich Killian. You also have James Badgedale, who comes in as Eric Saban, who some people might know from the comics as the character Coldblood. I mean, they do a really good job with this. The only weak link I actually found in the movie was with Rebecca Hall, who really wasn't bad. It just kind of felt like she was more of a plot device than really just a character to add depth to the story. I mean, she's cool for what she does, but honestly, if she was left out, there really would not have been that big of a deal thrown over it. One of the things I really like about this film is that Shane Black really put his stamp on this movie. I mean, he actually elevates this saga to the next level. And I mean, he did say in a lot of interviews he took a lot of tips and nods and advice and whatnot from Jon Favreau, who directed the previous two movies and is now a producer on this one, but he still managed to make his own movie. It feels like his type of movie, yet at the same time it still feels like Jon Favreau is behind the camera, sitting in the director's chair, still calling shots, which isn't the case. But honestly, of this movie, I'd have to say this one is the best directed one. It has a pretty lengthy runtime. I want to say it's right at 2.5 hours, but it doesn't really feel like it. It doesn't really weigh on you while you're sitting there in the chair watching on the big screen. And speaking of pace, that's actually one of the parts where some fans or members of the audience will probably be a little divided on. It's one of those types of movies, because it does move at such a steady pace and doesn't really slow down too much, the emotional tones that come up in the movie really come at you at a breakneck speed. I mean, the movie shifts back and forward. I mean, like that, between dark and serious subject matter to lighthearted comedic matter. You'll be sitting there and see something that's just gut-wrenching and just so tragic, and all of a sudden, boom, joke. And, I mean, that's actually to the film's advantage, because honestly, some of the material in this movie is a little heavy, especially for how lighthearted the previous films were. And this actually kind of gives it a little bit more personality, so you're not just sitting there watching a movie full of brooding and dark overtones, which seem to be pretty popular with movies nowadays. One of my only real complaints with this movie is with the Mandarin. And I know a lot of people are probably thinking, oh, you're just going to bitch about the fact he's not, Chinese or whatever. Actually, I don't really care about that. Because honestly, the Mandarin is one of those characters from the comics that is kind of goofy and would be really hard to pull off in an actual live-action adaptation. And I mean, honestly, I kind of like the way that Jon Favreau set him up in the first two films. He's more of an idea. He's more of a shadow man, which is why I'm not really all that bummed out about the fact that the Mandarin is not used a whole lot in this film. I mean, he's in the movie a good chunk, but it's one of those where you kind of still feel like, I kind of was expecting a little bit more. And once again, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, because Ben Kingsley, when he's on the set, in the frame, he is chewing up the scenery. And I have no problem with that. He actually plays the Mandarin better than I could have hoped that he could have played. He sells you on the idea that this guy is a master terrorist. He has you believing that he is the Marvel Universe's version of Osama bin Laden. I mean, the guy is just that terrifying. I mean, honestly, if I saw this cat pop up on the TV screen, I'd be a little bit worried too about the places I was frequenting. Are they going to get blowed up too? Who knows? But that being said, another thing I think a lot of people are probably going to have issues with is that, much like Dark Knight Rises, where you got more time with Bruce Wayne than you actually got with Batman, in this film it's more of the same, but what I think Shane Black did a really good job of is making sure that the parts with Tony Stark were way more interesting than the scenes that we had in Dark Knight Rises with Bruce Wayne, because those were pretty, boring. I even felt like, the scenes, even when he was Iron Man and wasn't even fighting anything, just kind of standing around, I thought those scenes were really good as well. I mean, Robert Downey Jr. does a really good job of selling you this character because he honestly has to carry this film as Tony Stark, not so much as Iron Man. Now, don't get me wrong, when you do get Iron Man, you get Iron Man in spades, and it's good. And we actually get a pretty good fight scene at the end that's not just another, oh, I gotta fight another giant robot, or another giant armored suit like you did in the last two movies. They actually give you something pretty satisfying here in this film. In the end, honestly, if Marvel really wanted to, they could totally just end the whole Iron Man franchise and just say, okay, look, we're just doing Avengers movies from here on out with this character. I don't think that they will. I honestly do feel like there is a lot to go forward with this movie because they do set you up for some pretty good things, but they still end it on a good, strong note that where if they didn't, I mean, honestly, would you miss it? Sure, but all that being said, if I had to actually sit down and rate Iron Man 3 on our grading scale, I'd have to say, and I did wrestle with this one because I was like, they're both, I want to give it the highest rating, I want to give it the next highest rating, but I don't know which one to go with, so I go fan-freaking-tastic. This movie is actually worth your time. It's worth seeing on the big screen. It's worth owning on Blu-ray, and this is one of those superhero movies that is in the 1%. It gives me that feeling all over again that I had with Iron Man 1 when I was like, oh my god, this is what a comic book movie should really be about. And it does it yet again with this film. They do just an amazing job with it. Everybody's good. The direction is good. Everything is moving forward. And I actually want to see some of these characters back again. And I'm even hoping some of these supporting characters wind up in the next Avengers movie. If you like this review, hey, click that like button. Comment, like, subscribe, whatever it is that you do. Keep it real with me like I keep it real with you. And stay tuned for more content.